Good morning. Testing, testing, testing. One, two, three. Good morning. I'd like to call the Monday, May 18th Board of Zoning Adjustments meeting to order. We will begin with roll call. Candace Forrest,
Present.
Todd James,
Present.
Tamara Aggins, Jose Alvarez,
Present.
Jamie Romero Diaz,
Present.
Alfonso Gonzalez,
Present.
and Jason Richards is absent. At this time, would the board make a motion to adopt the minutes from the March 16th meeting? I'm sorry.
Move.
That would be the April meeting.
Move.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Alvarez, second by Commissioner James, to adopt the minutes from our April meeting. Roll call vote, Todd James.
Yes.
Tamara Eggins.
Yes.
Jose Alvarez. Romero Diaz.
Yes.
Alfonso Gonzalez.
Yay.
And Candace Forrest, yay. 6 yeas, no nays, the motion carries.
Please note that the board will recess at approximately 1 p.m. if the meeting has not already been adjourned, and will reconvene at approximately 2 p.m. As a reminder to applicants, action that the board takes today will be released in the form of a disposition notice by May 28th and sent via email and mail to applicants, as well as posted on the One Stop app for other interested parties. Requests that the board votes to approve must show compliance with any noted provisos before the case is finalized and granted final approval. All variance cases with staff recommendations for deferral, as well as variance cases with applicant requests for deferral that have been submitted to staff prior to the submittal deadline, will be heard following the new business for variances. Item number 3, BZA docket 03126 for the property at 7032 Boston Drive has been rendered moot. Item number 9, BZA docket 04226 for the property at 14 Thrasher Street has been withdrawn. And item number 11, BZA docket 04526 for the property at 730 through 32 St. Peter Street has been rendered moot. We will now begin with unfinished business for variances. Will the chair please read the hearing rules for variances?
Rules and procedures for public hearings, variance requests. The following procedures shall be observed during the hearing. Each speaker shall give their name and address prior to speaking on the proposal. The applicant or representative will speak first. The presentation shall be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes for each applicant or representative speaker, but in no event shall the cumulative presentation total by applicants or their representatives exceed 10 minutes. Proponents or persons in favor of the proposal will speak next and be allowed 2 minutes per speaker. Opponents or persons in opposition of the proposal will speak next and be allowed 2 minutes per speaker. The applicant or representative will be allowed a rebuttal. The rebuttal shall be limited to a cumulative maximum of 3 minutes. For an exceptional case, the time limitations may be extended by the presiding officer with the approval of the board. As the board deems necessary, the case may be acted upon at this meeting or deferred for additional information or review. If the case is deferred, it will be acted on at a subsequent meeting as provided by law. All proper parliamentary procedures shall be followed, including recognition of speakers, relevance of argument, and absolute prohibition of applause or demonstration. Standard of review. The Board of Zoning Adjustments shall not authorize a variance from requirements of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance unless it finds, based upon the evidence presented to it, that each case has satisfied the 9 criteria listed in Article 4, Section 4.6.f of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance.
Item 1, BZA docket 023-26 is an after-the-fact request for variances from the provisions of Article 11, Section 11.3.a.1, Table 11-2A of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance to permit the retention of excessive impervious surface in the front yard. According to the applicant, repairs undertaken by the Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans to underground pipes resulted in site conditions that damaged the front yard. In an effort to address the resultant flooding, the applicant repaired the front yard with concrete after Sewage and Water Board denied the request to repair with brick and mortar pavers to match the site conditions in place since at least 2007. Staff met with the applicant on March 25th, 2026, to discuss the areas of concrete for removal. The applicant has proposed extending the existing planter in the front yard by 2 feet and extending the permeable open space to the end of the last step of the stairs leading to the front entrance of the property. The total area of proposed permeable space increases to 90 square feet for a total permeable area percentage of 37%. This decreases the waiver request from 50 to 23%. Despite these developments, the review of the criteria for the standards of variances has not changed, and the requested variance fails to meet criteria 2, 6, 8, and 9. Therefore, staff recommends denial of BZA docket 023-26. However, should the board find that the request meets all 9 approval standards, staff recommends 2 provisos.
Thank you. Is the applicant present for BZA docket 023-26? Is there anyone here in support of the applicant for BZA docket 023-26? Anyone here in opposition? I know the applicant wasn't available last month. Was there?
The applicant also reached out to staff and notified us that they would most likely not be able to make this meeting due to a health condition.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board?
Yes, I know, I know that she had been talking to like Urban Conservancy and other groups. Is that what the plan is, to work with somebody to remove the paving and do some water-sensitive planting?
At this time, Urban Conservancy cannot provide any assistance to the applicant due to grant funding and them not working in her area. I believe the applicant was also connected with someone from Groundwork NOLA. However, I haven't received any update as to whether that organization is able to assist her, so there's no update from staff on that.
Okay.
But staff does agree that there has at least been a intent to try to find at least a higher threshold in order to closer to conformity.
That is correct. She is willing to break up more concrete, which does decrease the amount of impervious coverage, but doesn't quite meet the
that.
requirement.
Got it.
Well, and given the site and the sidewalk condition there, I think she's making a good effort. It seems like, and I don't know if there are other places on the property, but it looked like it was mostly about the front yard. So
Right.
I think there's a letter in here as well. I just don't want to keep this going too much longer. I'm comfortable to move forward with it.
I'm in the same
Proposal.
position as
Okay.
you on it, just looking at it from what was there before. It was a brick paver system, which if you were to try to install something to that similar aesthetic, what would be the subsurface condition would change dramatically how this would work. So having concrete versus putting anything else back to increase permeability, it kind of is a catch-22 for them at this point.
Yeah, so if a motion's in order, in regards to docket 2326, I move to approve with the noted proviso, citing the letter and the discussion here today and over the past meetings.
Second.
Just to make sure, I was going to offer up the second, but
Oh,
making sure that we
sorry.
had the 2 provisos covered that's recommended by staff.
Yeah, I said the noted provisos, but
All
I
right. Just making sure, I'm sorry.
hadn't read what they were, so yeah.
With regard to BZA docket 023-26, it's been moved by Commissioner Diaz, second by Commissioner Gonzalez, to grant the requested waiver, finding that the 9 criteria have been met, and adopting the commentary from today as well as the applicant's submission to establish that the 9 criteria have been met, subject to 2 provisos. Roll call vote. Todd James.
Yes.
Tamara Eggins.
Yes.
Jose Alvarez.
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz.
Yes.
Alfonso Gonzalez.
Yay.
And Candace Forrest, yay. 6 yeas, no nays, the motion carries. Next item.
The next The next item is BZA docket 02926 for the property located at 1614 Poland Avenue. This is an after-the-fact request for variances from the comprehensive zoning ordinance to permit the construction of a second principal structure with insufficient rear yard setback and the retention of a parking pad located between the front facade and the front property line, resulting in front yard parking. Article 12, Section 12.3A1, Table 12-2 requires structures to be at least 15 feet from the rear property line. The applicant is proposing 3 feet, necessitating a waiver of 12 feet. Article 21, Section 21.7, Table 21-2, and Article 22, Section 2211D1 do not allow for parking in the front yard. The applicant is requesting a waiver to allow for front yard parking. Article 22, Section 22.8A1BII, and Article 22, Section 2211D2 do not allow for parking between the front facade and front property line. The applicant is requesting a waiver to allow the parking between the front facade and the front property line. This request was deferred from the March BZA hearing to allow the applicant and staff to verify the required parking count with the Department of Safety and Permits. The Department of Safety and Permits confirmed that the additional parking spaces are not required at this time. The request was also deferred at the April BZA hearing to allow for the applicant to provide additional materials to the staff to support the staff report. To staff to support the request, I'm sorry. At this time, the applicant has not provided staff with the updated documents. The staff believes that the requested waiver of Article 12, Section 12.3A1, Table 12-2, rear yard setback fails to meet standards A1, A3, A4, A5, and B1 of the standards of variances per Article 4, Section 46F of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, and that no special circumstances exist that are peculiar to the land. Literal interpretation of the ordinance will not deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties. The request for the variance is based on primarily to serve the convenience or profit of the property owner. Strict adherence to the regulations would not result in a demonstrable hardship upon the owner, and granting the variance will not confer on the applicant special privileges. Additionally, staff believes that the requested waivers of Article 21, Section 21.7, Table 21-2, permitted encroachments into the required yards for a parking pad. Article 22, Section 22.8A1BII, permitted vehicle parking locations in the front yard. Article 22, Section 2211D1, parking pad design location, and 22, Section 2211D2, parking pad design location, fails to meet standards A3 of the standards of variances per Article 4, Section 46F of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, and that the literal interpretation of the ordinance will not deprive the applicant of commonly enjoyed rights. Therefore, the staff recommends denial of the requested variances, and the applicant has requested an additional 30-day deferral to allow the property owner to gather supplemental materials to further defend their requests.
Thank you. You could go ahead.
Yes, good morning, Zach Smith, 1000 South Norman C. Francis.
Can you pull up the mic a little bit? Sorry.
Is that a little bit better? Wonderful. Good morning again, Board. Zach Smith, 1000 South Norman C. Francis. Appreciate the staff report and appreciate staff mentioning about the 30 days. I wanted to actually see if we could push that to 4 months, to 120. We expect to have this solved and handled by that time. Things have just been taking a little bit longer with some acquisition of some property next door, and would love to keep the right open, but hopefully not have the staff waste more time sending out this notice every month.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in support of the applicant for BZA docket 029-26? Anyone here in opposition? Any questions from the board?
The motion's in order.
Proceed.
Madam Chair, regards to BZA docket number 029-26. A motion's for 120 to defer at the request of the applicant for them to review alternative means of compliance.
I'll second.
Thank you. With regards to BZA docket 029-26, it's been moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Alvarez to defer the item 120 days. Roll call vote, Todd James.
Yes.
Tamara Eggins.
Yes.
Jose Alvarez.
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz.
Yes.
Alfonso Gonzalez.
Yay.
And Candace Forrest, yay. 4 yeas, no nays. Six yeas, no nays. The motion carries. Next item.
And one note that item 3 was withdrawn.
The next item is BZA docket 032-26 for property located at 2022 Phillip Street. This is a request for variances from the provisions of Article 22, Section 22.4.a, Table 22-1, off-street vehicle and bicycle parking requirements of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance to permit the construction of a two-family dwelling, resulting in insufficient off-street parking. This request was deferred at the April 20th Board of Zoning Adjustments hearing so the applicant could work with the architect to bring the plans closer into compliance. The board asked the applicant to explore revising the site plan and floor plan to provide 2 off-street parking spaces, curb cuts no greater than 12 feet, and impervious surface area that does not exceed 40% of the front yard. As of May 1st, while the applicant's architect has expressed that a redesign would introduce other zoning issues, staff has not received an updated site plan and floor plans that either comply or that illustrate the suggested zoning issues. The staff believes that the requested waivers of Article 22, Section 22.4.a, Table 22-1 of off-street vehicle and bicycle parking requirements fails to meet A.1, A.3, A.4, A.5, and B.1 of the standards of variance per Article 4, Section 4.6 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. Therefore, staff recommends denial of the requested variance from Article 22, Section 22.4.a, Table 22-1 of off-street parking and bicycle requirements. However, should the board find that the request meets all 9 approval standards, staff recommends one proviso.
Thank you. Is the applicant present for BZA docket 032-26?
Good morning, Deshaun Davenport, 73162 United Church Road, Covington, Louisiana. I'm here representing the party for the project. We worked with the applicant and the architect on trying to redesign the project, and it would only cause more problems with the size of the lot. If we tried to push the house back, we would incur in the buffer zone that you need behind the house, and by trying to add 2 parking spots, we would run into errors with the size of the curb cuts as well as the driveway. We even explored elevating the house, but we reached, when talking to the bank, that it would cause other hardships because the height would limit the amount of people that would be able to purchase the house if we tried to elevate it, as far as elderly, handicapped, and stuff like that.
Is that the end of your comments?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in support of the applicant for BZA docket 032-26? Anyone here in opposition? Any questions from the board? I can't recall from the last meeting, I don't know, Commissioner James or Diaz, our resident design folks, I don't recall what the specific asks were around the redesign. I'm just trying to understand from, I know the applicant's representative is mentioning the challenges, and it's hard to weigh in on how to review the proposed changes when we don't see them. So I don't know if you all had any specific thoughts. I'm struggling with how to kind of evaluate the position now.
Well, when we looked into it, the changes would cause other issues with zoning as well as the plan review, as far as because of the size of the lot. So we couldn't put 2 parking spots next to it because we're only limited to 36 feet. Then it would cause problems with the permeable space that would be needed. And then we looked at the option of elevating it, but like I said, that would limit it as well, too.
So when we did discuss this last time, we did not ask for it to be shift back. I think what we referenced was looking at the first floor plan and evaluating how to potentially put in the 2 compliant parking stalls on the ground floor. There are properties across town, I mean, I've seen them in Gentilly, some of them uptown, mid-city, where similar plans have been created that provide the two off-street compliant parking stalls, and some of it is by having covered parking under a portion of the first floor. I will say I don't really buy the argument on if you were to elevate the house further that it wouldn't be marketable. That's more of a financial piece if you're using the bank argument on that part versus how the zoning application works here. So as I remember the conversation from 2 months ago, the initial comment was about looking at other plans that do exist or you have the ability to create because this is a clear site. You're not doing a structural modification in order to come up with a plan that may be able to suit what's being proposed. And also, I mean, if I'm hearing this correctly, this is more from a developer perspective as opposed to an individual resident who's trying to do a modification, where I think those conversations are very different. And when we're dealing with the developer, that is always going to drive back to at least one of the 9 criteria not being met, which is related to the financial benefit of the applicant.
They're not looking at the financial benefit because we've already referenced the 2 properties that they used was previously built in this area, which was on the same platform.
I'm referencing what you had in some of your initial comments related to bank financing.
No, not the bank finance. We're talking about limited to people because of elderly or most of that buy in that area. So if you elevate the house even higher, now you're trying to limit their ability to get up there. So it's not necessarily banking directly. It's just at the potential.
So that, but again, that's financial viability of the development. I mean, I don't want to be the only one to speak to this, but.
Just looking over Jose's shoulder as he's driving down the street, looking at the context. I mean, I think that.
And as you can see, there's several cars already parking on the street.
I mean, I think the challenge here is that the lot's wide enough that
To accommodate.
and because it's multifamily, right?
And we're not asking for it to be tandem. I mean, that's when because even the comment of saying that moving the plan further back into the site, that wouldn't even meet the compliance piece anyway, because you can't have parking within a front yard. So
Correct.
no compliant parking stalls in the front. That's why the question was raised last time about looking at how the covered parking portion, as it's already shown in the plan, is under the second floor within the first floor plane. Why not look at a plan that allows for the access to be behind the parking, which is something that you do see as a development pattern that does exist citywide?
I think for, excuse me, sorry. I think for, to kind of go back to Commissioner James' point, I think the challenge when looking at the 9 criteria, one, as Commissioner James pointed to, about a hardship, if there are ways that you're able to develop the lot and be in compliance, it's difficult to indicate that there is a hardship. And so when the only thing that's being discussed is the potential viability, not even we don't know if it's a real issue, but the potential viability of who would be able to occupy the property, that doesn't fit within what we consider are the 9 criteria because it's not truly a hardship. So I think that's where the conversation around meeting the 9 criteria is a challenge at this point if that's the basis for not being able to sort of reconfigure what the parking would look like.
And additionally, just within our rules, I mean, with the change of the reasonable accommodations language that exists when we get into any discussion related to accessibility of a property, that takes that out of this purview. So it makes it even harder to even use that as a justification when items like that exist, or processes or exist in that capacity to get something on an administrative approval from the department.
And that's why I mentioned the real viability, because in that situation, there has to be an actual individual to apply for a reasonable accommodation. Right now, we're discussing a possibility that we don't know would really come to fruition.
I will add that the CZO does allow for developers to apply for reasonable accommodations, even if a specific individual with a disability is not in mind, but just, thinking forward into the future that they would rent or sell to somebody with a disability.
Are there any other questions from the board?
Yeah, no, I think my struggle here is that just because it worked on another site that was smaller doesn't mean, because it is a bigger site, you could change the design. So that was the argument we heard last time, and I haven't seen really a change here. So, can you guys take another pass at it, or should we defer or
We can,
deny?
but like I said, we just don't want to get into, well, now we're back in front of you at a meeting because we didn't meet the criteria or something else with safety. And, with the plan review, because that's what we ran into as far as designing the driveway. But the curve cuts was an issue, permeable space would have been an issue because of the size of the lot.
But you're only going to come before us if it doesn't meet the buildable waivers that you would need. I mean, if you can design it without needing waivers, then you don't need to come before us, so.
Right. Because you keep referring back to the permeability, and that's assuming that you're moving the building back and increasing the amount of paving inside the front yard, and that's not what we suggested, nor would that be the appropriate way to modify the plan in order to come up with something that's applicable, or at least acceptable. I'm one person. My recommendation is just hate doing de facto just denials on things when there seems to be at least a path to get to compliance. So,
Can we ask for 60 days then?
yeah, that was going to be my question. All right. For motions in order.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board?
Yeah, and, I know it takes time to go through the plan and look at how to come up with these mods. Realistically, do you think the 60 days is acceptable? Workable, excuse me.
Yes, sir. We had plans. It just kept running into issues when
Okay.
you go through the CZO as far as the other requirements. So
Yeah,
we'll
and I'm
just
gonna just strongly make the suggestion, don't look at it from shifting the home back. That's not what we were suggesting, because you don't want to create tandem parking.
Correct.
It is looking at it, having a centralized entrance with the two driveways.
And
either
elevated,
Split
yes, sir.
or off to one side, all right? If a motion's in order.
Yes, proceed.
Madam Chair, with regards to BZA docket number 032-26, my motion's for a 60-day deferral at the request of the applicant.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. With regards to BZA docket 032-26, it's been moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Diaz, to defer the item 60 days to give the applicant time to look at modifications to the plans. Roll call vote, Todd James,
Yes.
Tamara Eggins,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez, Ramiro Diaz,
Yes.
Alfonso Gonzalez,
Yay.
and Candace Forrest, yay. 6 yeas, no nays, the motion carries. Next item.
The next item is BZA docket 03826 for the property located at 3316 Dauphine Street. This is an after-the-fact request for variances from the comprehensive zoning ordinance to permit ground-based mechanical equipment with insufficient distance from the interior side lot line. Article 21, Section 21(6)(T)(1) requires mechanical equipment to be at least 2 feet from the interior property line. The applicant is proposing 5 inches, necessitating a waiver of 1 foot 7 inches. Article 21, Section 21-7, Table 21-2 requires mechanical equipment to be at least 2 feet from the interior property line. The applicant is proposing 5 inches, necessitating a waiver of 1 foot 7 inches. This request was deferred at the April BZA hearing to allow the applicant to post proper signage on the property and for the staff to write the report. The staff believes that the requested waivers of Article 21, Section 21-6T1, mechanical equipment, and Article 21, Section 21-7, Table 21-2, permitted encroachments into required yards for ground-mounted mechanical equipment failed to meet standards A1, A3, A4, A5, B1, and B4 of the standards of variances per Article 4, Section 46F of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, and that there are no special circumstances that exist. Literal interpretation would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties. The request of the variance is based primarily on the desire to serve the convenience of the profit of the property owner. Strict adherence of the regulation would not result in a demonstrable hardship. Granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege. The proposed variance will not impair will impair the adequate amount of light and air to adjacent properties. Therefore, staff recommends denial of the requested variances.
Is the applicant present for BZA docket 038-26?
Good morning. Pedro Molina, 3316 Dauphine Street. I'm the applicant for the variance request at said property regarding the location of the mechanical condensing unit. During construction, it was identified that the originally permitted plans located the unit beneath a window, which created a conflict with proper installation clearances. Once identified, we worked with HDLC and the city's mechanical division to identify a compliant and practical alternative. The unit was ultimately relocated to the service alley. This location was selected because of its provision, location flexibility, is screened from public view and minimizes impact to both the streetscape and neighboring properties. Placement of the front of the property is not permitted per HDLC guidelines. Locating the unit at the rear on the opposite side would block access to the full depth due to the rear patio structure and main house. The other service alley is the shortest travel and would also provide or close off that access to the rear of the property from that side due to the floor plan configuration. Based on these constraints, the current location is the option that satisfies access flexibility. This situation was not intentionally created. It is a result of resolving of a conflict identified while trying to meet a standard. The installation does not alter the character of the neighborhood. I understand the concerns that were raised prior, and I've made an effort to ensure this solution minimizes any potential impact. Respectfully, asking you for your consideration and approval of this variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in support of the applicant for BZA docket 038-26? Anyone here in opposition?
Hello, Board. Thank you very much. My name is Frederick Helm. I live at 19 East 16th Street, New York, New York. I'm speaking in opposition to the variance. I sent a detailed letter on May 7th with a bunch of considerations. First of all, it fails 4 of the 9 variants, the requirements for a variance. Special privilege, inconvenience, but more importantly, the 9th one is the most pressing one, where this mechanical device inhibits emergency personnel access to the full property. That's the property next door. They have 5 inches or 4 inches for a person to get through that alleyway and need to. So I detailed some other letters in my letter explaining how the reason for the variance has been said because it couldn't be under, the air conditioner couldn't be under a window, when in fact, when they placed the air conditioners in the temporary drawing, they are under a window. They literally are put under a window. This really appears to me to be a made-up excuse for the after-effect need to have a convenient place for them to put the units. So if there's any questions you guys have for me about my letter, please feel free to send them. I mean, ask me, I'll come back up and clarify anything, but I thank you for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you. I know you gave your address, but could you just, I can't recall if you gave your name for the record. I'm sorry.
It's in the record, but I submitted a letter May 7th. My address is 19.
No, your name.
Oh, my name is Frederick Helms. Sorry
Thank you.
about that. Oh, thanks.
Anyone else here in opposition?
My name is Janet Benson.
You can pull the mic up a little bit, make it easier.
Good morning. My name is Janet Benson. I am the owner of the home next door. I submitted all my documents about this variance. I'm in opposition. It is a safety issue. There's 5 inches between the stands, the condensers, and my fence, and I'm deeply concerned about the safety. So I have all my documents I have submitted to Haley Webb, who was the program planner, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Could you
Thank
give your address for
Yes,
the record?
3322 Dauphine Street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here in opposition? The applicant has an opportunity to rebut.
I will state that I did reach out to HDLC and the city's mechanical division regarding this prior to relocation or other options.
Can you pull the mic up?
I'm sorry. That correspondence has been presented, part of my exhibit package to the board.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? A quick question to the applicant. I know you indicated that you worked with HDLC and the mechanical division. The staff report indicates that there are other compliant locations, and the discussion has been around the original location, I believe, under the window. But did you all look at other locations other than where the equipment is currently located?
Those other locations were discussed. This one provided the least constraint and the more flexibility. Looking at the site plan, as I noted before, if you located it on the back left side of the property, that would not provide access due to the patio, existing building, and the back of the property of the main house. The side to the right of that service alley is the shortest distance from the front of the property, access to the rear of the property, and then you have the front of the property. So all of these were reviewed with HDLC as well. I will say that, that service alley is a private service alley, right? So there is a gate and there is a fence. So it's not, I would say, a public right-of-way or throughway.
Are there any other questions from the board?
Question for the applicant. What other areas they suggested for you to locate this equipment?
The only other suggestion would be the shorter service alley. But again, that is the shortest access path right to the rear of the property. So that you would almost be doing the same thing again. Again, we did bring up the rear back, and that also cut access. Patio structure and the building, and the front. A lot of these are all pointing to some constraint, right? There's always some constraint that prevents ability to some other point of the property. This is the one that provided, I would say, the most flexibility.
When you say a constraint, is it going to require a variance, or is it?
It would certainly require some variance depending on where that location.
And I'm asking because the way that it's provided in the staff report is that they're compliant locations, meaning that there would not be the need for a variance. So that's why I'm just trying to understand if that's accurate or not. So you're saying that there's no other location on the site that would be compliant and not require a variance?
I would think not. It ultimately it comes back to, yes, constraint and compliance.
Yeah, and that was my question. It's like, I mean, I doubt the city would tell you to put it in a place where you cannot put it, right? So for the staff, where were those options that are compliant?
Our staff had also reached out to the zoning division of safety and permits just to triple check things. We have not reached back out to mechanical, but the zoning division did confirm it could be placed anywhere in the rear yard between the garage and the house, or on the roof if it's at least 6 feet from all building walls.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question, is if it could be mounted to the roof. I mean, I struggle with the location just based on the fact that it's in that tight little alley and looking at the photos. Like, I can't believe the mechanical division would allow that, so. It just seems like a non-starter to me.
Yeah, so.
I agree.
So to your point, yes, it would not be, it will require also variances if it's in the short alley, as you refer to the right side of the property, correct? But the backyard or the roof are options.
Yeah, I mean, there's the roof of that shed in the back. or the roof of the main house. I know the HDLC is a concern, but I mean, I know there's been projects where that you create a well and the air conditioning goes into the well in the attic.
This
Setback
was new
behind the house.
construction, right, too?
Yeah.
This was new construction, right?
No,
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 it's
renovation.
It's renovation, yeah,
it was renovation.
yeah. And of course, the mechanical equipment's probably in the attic, so might not work. But having something mounted to the roof is another option. I mean, I have mine up on a platform, up on my roof. But you can't, it's behind a parapet, so you can't see it. So I think that would be a challenge with HDLC. But the rear roof feels like that could be an exploration there.
Structure, are you referring to the patio?
Make sure you're talking to the mic. Some of this is for our recording. Even though we can hear you, it's being recorded, so we have to make sure that the recording can hear the commentary as well.
All right, so the structure of that rear patio,
Yeah.
it will not, support the weight
Okay.
of the units.
So you'd have to.
Especially two of them.
Yeah. So you'd have to fix that.
Right.
But yeah.
The only, just a note on that, whenever we're dealing with a non-contiguous structure, you're then having to now come up with a way to route that condensate line back to the building. So
more
just
to
something,
it.
yeah,
Correct.
it's more than just
Yeah,
moving to that
and
piece.
as you can see, if that patio-mounted roof, then I also have existing structure immediately to the left of it, right? Like actual, I'm not talking about exterior space, but that would be interior space of the adjacent property. So that may also pose another issue. While I haven't fully vetted it out, it's just existing condition again.
A quick question to staff. I know, Emily, you mentioned that you had staff had not reached out to the mechanical division, and I'm just wondering if it would be helpful to get to maybe have that conversation to understand. Maybe there's some commentary or explanation as to why the proposal was laid out the way that it was.
Our staff would be happy to do that.
I don't know if board members, if as I can't make a motion, if there's a desire to get that information before making a decision.
Yeah, and just to clarify we talked about this a bit, the reasons for it not being where you guys originally showed in the plan was primarily because of the window?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and then you've got a porch on the backside that looks like it's got steps going to either direction, right? So is there any chance that you could locate one of the units, modify the steps so that instead of having them go each way, one goes to the right and you locate, because one of the locations was okay, right? Of the two units, the unit that was to the right of the window, the plan.
Yeah, potentially.
I mean, that's where I see there's an option if you want it close to the building. I mean, that's where I see there's an opportunity here that you can locate it in that rear yard. And yeah, I think I would love to hear some better, opinions. I do struggle with the idea of having these units in that narrow walkway.
I wasn't sure about the specifics, but just generally, that was just my thought. If there are no more questions, is there a motion?
In regards to docket 3826, is that right? I move to defer for 30 days to the next meeting. Is that enough time to get the mechanical?
It should be, and I just heard from the planner who's assigned who couldn't be here today. She did call the mechanical division twice, but hadn't gotten an answer, so we'll be sure to send an email, get an answer within that time.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thanks. With regards to BZA docket 038-26, it's been moved by Commissioner Diaz and seconded by Commissioner Alvarez to defer the item 30 days for staff to get clarity from the mechanical division. Roll call vote, Todd James,
Yes.
Tamara Eggins,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez, Ramiro Diaz,
Yes.
Alfonso Gonzalez,
Yay.
and Candace Forrest, yay. 6 yeas, no nays, the motion carries. Next item.
We will now begin with the new business for variances.
The next item is BZA docket 039-26 for a property located at 1455 North Roman Street. This request is for a variance from provisions of Article 11, Section 11.3.A.1, Table 11-2A, minimum lot area, and Article 11, Section 11.3.A.1, Table 11-2A, minimum lot width, to permit the creation of a lot with insufficient lot area and insufficient lot width. The applicant is proposing to re-subdivide the site to move the lot line so that the 1451 North Roman Street proposed lot B/1-A would include the driveway rather than the subject property at 1455 North Roman Street, proposed lot B-2-A. This variance request only pertains to lot B-2-A. The applicant proposes no changes to the footprint of the property and is requesting waivers for insufficient lot width and insufficient lot area. The staff believes that the requested waiver for Article 11, Section 11.3.A.1, minimum lot area, and Article 11, Section 11.3.A.1, minimum lot width, to allow a waiver of minimum lot area and minimum lot width fails to meet standards A.3, A.5, B.1, and B.2 of their standards for variance per Article 4, Section 4.6.f of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, and that A3, literal interpretation of this ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the terms of this ordinance. A.5, strict adherence to the regulation by the owner or their agent would result in a demonstrable hardship upon the owner, as distinguished from mere inconvenience. B.1, granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege, which is denied by this ordinance to other lands or structures in the same district or otherwise similarly situated. B.2, the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. Therefore, the staff recommends denial of the requested variance from Article 11, Section 11.3.A.1, minimum lot area, and Article 11, Section 11.3.A.1, minimum lot width. However, should the board find that the request meets all approval standards of the standards for variances of Article 4, Section 4.6.f, staff recommends one proviso.
Is the applicant present for BZA docket 039-26?
Hi.
Hi, if you could give your name and address for the record.
Yeah, thank you. My name's Ezra Spira Cohen. Excuse me. Address 1457 North Roman. It's the property next to the greenhouse in the picture here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Thanks to the City Planning Commission also for the report. I just want to maybe explain a little bit the situation. I'm not trying to alter anything on this site. As it stands right now, the driveway is connected to the adjacent property, 1453. You can see in the photos and in the survey. My goal here is to preserve the way these properties have been for the last 20 years. What's not included in the report is some research. I looked at Google Images. It's been 19 years as it exists today, with the fence where it is and the driveway where it is. So I'm not creating any new buildings, no changes to any new buildings. It's an application for a minor subdivision. That's why I need the variance. This property that I would need the variance for already has an exception. It's already under the 30 feet as it stands today for the width. There was some comparison with the surrounding area. I was able to do my own comparison with a different square, a catty corner square that had many more exceptions than the ones that were in the report. I think it is square 763, which is catty corner to the square that was in the survey, or that was in the report. And I counted 37% were both insufficient width and area, excuse me. I also wanted to say that this wouldn't just be a mere insignificance. This would be more of a significant hardship to place the fence, to move the fence to where it should be according to the current lot, and to remove the driveway. This would also include removing steps that are currently on 1453 that come off the side. You can see in the survey there's steps there. Moving the property line where I'm requesting would allow the 3 feet, but it would be, I wouldn't be able to use the door there. So I don't think this is a case of any special privilege. Clearly there are exceptions in the area there, especially this catty corner square that I mentioned, where 37% of the properties both have insufficient width and area. I'm sorry if I'm using too much time, please. I have one more point to make. There was some mention in the report about altering the character of the area. My goal here, again, is to preserve the way it's been for the last 19 years or more, at least 19 years, I should say. The report mentioned the challenges to possible new developments in the future. I'm not sure of what any hypothetical new developments might look like. I find it might be unlikely in this historical district.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh, please, I'd be happy to ask any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
If there's, is there anyone else here in support of the applicant for BZA docket 039-26? Anyone here in opposition? Any questions from the board?
Just a quick question to staff. When I was reviewing the report, I was having some confusion as to where the actual property line sits now versus where it's proposed, was one part. The second piece to this is on what's being proposed as B2A, the lot B2A, which I understand to be, that's the lot in question, correct?
Correct.
Okay, in lot B2A, on the survey, it still shows a building encroachment on the property next to it. So how can we evaluate this one knowing that there's already some type of a discrepancy in terms of what's
Any
being
type
proposed?
of encroachment issue is actually going to be finalized with the subdivision itself, but the subdivision cannot move forward at all unless the waivers are approved. So is
But
that
I'm
what
talking
you're-
about the physical building that's shown at the 1457.
I'm going to defer to Emily on this one.
Yeah, that property is not part of the subdivision. I don't believe it's under the same ownership. I can double check that. But it does appear to be encroaching. Okay.
You got to come to the mic.
Come to the mic and put it on the record.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it is the same ownership. That's my house. I actually live there. The 1457 address is my address. This used to be one lot, basically. And when they created it used to be just the A lot that you can't see on the survey. And when they divided it, there was some encroachment. I'm not sure. This is some history in the area there that I don't have an explanation for, but there is an encroachment. It is the same ownership. We do have an easement between those houses on record for the driveway there. Again, this is the character of this neighborhood. There's a lot of kind of irregular properties. And I'm actually trying to contribute to fixing that and regularizing this area and making the property line and the driveway where they have been for, again, at least 19 years.
So what I'm trying to get to is this better off deferred to so that you can work with the surveyor? If you do own both properties, that means you have the ability to make the adjustment so that there isn't the encroachment between the two structures. Well, excuse me, the encroachment of the structure onto the lot B2A that's being created. So I think it would just be better for us to see this in a correct configuration so that we're not creating some other form of a point of confusion at this time. Because the staff is assuming one thing versus what you may have the ability to correct at this time, especially if we're going to look at it. Because I think if all things are being considered at once, let's get that out of the way so it can be applied to all three properties in order to properly reconcile how the individual structures may fall on an individual lot of record. Look at your survey, where you reside, crosses the proposed property line. That needs to be remedied before we would.
Is the existing easement, does that cover this issue?
We can verify that, but the subdivision has been applied for. I believe it was about 2 months ago, and there is no comment from Safety and Permits about this issue. We can triple check that as well, though.
So, yeah, so in that case, I'd almost rather have all departments actually had a chance to review this appropriately so that you're not coming back for something later. Not saying that another waiver would be generated, we have no clue. But if everyone hasn't provided the appropriate review points towards this, to this formal application, I'd rather see 100% of that addressed before so we know what exactly we should review and how to better inform staff on what should be granted.
Can I ask a question? So the Safety and Permits would be responsible for signing off on the encroachment, or they would have to redraw, they would have to suggest a different subdivision
I think they would just
format?
provide comment to you for things to be resolved.
I see.
Because I don't know the nature of how your easement is proposed or recorded, so it kind of makes it a little bit more complicated.
And just to add, typically with a subdivision, the 60-day process of approval, this would have come up, but it was flagged before we even continued with that process, so this would have come up eventually through the departments that we reach out to. But it was, we're seeing it
Earlier.
First.
And that's through PAC? This goes through Planning Advisory Committee or not? What?
No, subdivisions send out to 5 different departments for
Okay.
approval. Things with
So
encroachment.
similar to, but just not that formal process.
Correct.
Yeah, just through our database, Llama.
Okay. Look like you got a question over there, Rob.
I'm not used to this process, so I don't know where we stand in this and if we'll be holding something up that is going to get resolved somewhere later, or if we let the other stuff get resolved and then we, whatever.
Yeah, I always feel like it's the chicken before the egg. Like, I never know who's
on first.
Yeah.
The only issue that could arise if Safety and Permits does have an issue with this is that another waiver would be needed. So if that lot line needs to be shifted over, then the other interior side yard would be deficient.
Yeah, because it's no longer 3 feet unless they jog it at that point. But then you got a different building code requirement on that other structure because now that building's edge falls on a property line.
Currently, it's over the property line, which is
Correct.
even
Which
worse.
is even worse. May I recommend you consider doing a 30 or 60-day deferral? Reason being, I'm gonna say 30 if they're already in the process of reviewing it. It usually comes back within 60 days, those comments from staff.
Correct.
So consider the 30-day deferral so you can confirm that everything's been appropriately reviewed by the different departments that have oversight, so that you at least have some clear understanding of what you may be triggering for yourself, just to be honest, because you may not like what some of the comments are that come back.
Thank you for the recommendation. From where I stand, I was coming here today to request a variance, again, for it's the width, insufficient width and insufficient area. Would the board still consider, of course, approving, I'm interested in approval, or considering it further, this variance today, this issue about the encroachment, on the off chance that it might come up in the and the easement doesn't cover it, then I might have to ask for another variance.
It's just exactly, and so there's a lot of assumptions.
And, right, so again, from where I stand, that process would be facilitated by, I mean, again, I'm interested in approval. An approved variance today would help in the future move this process along. So if the variance would, or if the board would consider this insufficient lot size or area and insufficient width, and that would be okay. That doesn't grant me the subdivision, that doesn't actually make anything official. I think that's how this would work. Right? I still have to get the minor re-subdivision approved. This is just kind of a way to move the process along.
So let me help you understand how it's likely going to work.
Please.
Let's say if safety and permits came back and said that you needed to shift that other line, that may shift or reduce the overall width of what you're asking for. So we're then revisiting the same application, same question on overall lot width, and it would also reduce the lot area. So both items would be revisited. Even if you were to make the indentation and move the property line to capture the encroachment, that still changes the lot area. So there's a lot of unknowns that would come up in the process, and you would be revisiting the same waiver request. So by going, at least deferring it for now to confirm all comments and see exactly what's required would help streamline what the answer needs to be and what actual waivers and variances you may actually need to be requesting at that time. The numbers change.
Of course.
So, and then with that, the waiver changes. So even if we gave you an approval, it's subjective at this point. It doesn't necessarily promote that it would get approved later on.
I see. Could you also, from where I'm new to this, first time going through this process, this was an important step to moving this process along. So could you make some recommendations about what the next steps would be and how to work with the City Planning Commission to make sure that all of these.
I'm at least saying if you
So just a
entertain the
deferral-
deferral, gives you the additional days in time so that you can confirm what the actual numbers, what the actual waivers would be.
Yeah, and then you can also ask the surveyor, like, is this a CAD error? Like, did you not
Right.
draw, is this not right? I mean, is the building over the line? Okay.
Yeah, that,
It is.
So then
they shouldn't have even
Yeah.
They shouldn't have.
submitted it. I understand you're talking about you have an encroachment or at least a easement that may exist on that line. It's
Yeah.
all projection or subjective at this point. So I strongly advise that you consider deferring it, confirm, review it again with the surveyor to see exactly how to appropriately draft this and get the correct calculations in areas. Like, we shouldn't just be re-subdividing and then creating an encroachment. Like, that would be poor planning practice at this point. So let's reevaluate it, get the site plan correct so it appropriately reflects what's necessary for the waiver. And I would tell you, just reach out to them today so that you're not tripped up and you're now pushed out 2 months. I'm trying
Right.
to help you to get to an answer sooner than later.
Is there a part of the CZO that I can refer to in terms of explaining the encroachment and how that, what that looks like in terms of the ordinance?
Krebs, who you used,
Okay.
is very well versed on the CZO.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask you to talk to the professional record who generated the documents. But also, get back with staff. They're also trying to confirm with the other departments that have some purview on it, so,
Okay.
okay.
Did you say, sorry, you said 30 days deferment?
It said 30, if you move quick enough with them, I'm assuming, when would he need to resubmit?
Looks like that would be, so the next staff report due date is May 27th, so it would need to be fairly soon, at least a couple days prior to that. You would need to work with Sarah to figure out what exact date she would need that.
I would say if the staff report's due on the 27th, then you could get it to me by next week.
get it to you, meaning that get a survey that shows the encroachment or that shows the subdivision without the building crossing the property line?
So let me interject. 30 days is not going to be enough for you to get this all resolved. All right, it's going to be in 60. I was trying to help you out time-wise.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's going to likely be 60 just based off of what I'm hearing, okay? By the time you even get comments back from the department to understand where they may stand, that's one part. Second part is getting your surveyor to go back out there, confirm, because they're probably going to want to visit the site again to confirm those points. So just 60 days would probably be the best process.
Yeah, and it also impacts the next property over,
Correct.
which isn't currently. So I think it's going to be a little stickier. So I'm with you, Todd.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. That's one reason why I'm trying to resolve this, because, this will come up in the future. This is the opportunity to, as someone
Yeah.
interested in making this within the city's
Yeah.
guidelines is important
Looking,
for me.
looking at the site plan and looking at the buildings on the street, it's clearly an oddball kind of property going on. You're trying to make it right, so let's get it right.
the first
Okay,
time.
thanks for your support.
All right, sorry about that.
No, this was helpful. Thank you. All right, so 60 days, just to confirm, 60-day deferment. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
If there are no other questions from the board, is there a motion?
Yeah. You go. Hey. Madam Chair, regards to BZA docket number 039-26, my motion's for a 60-day deferral.
Second.
Thank you. With regards to BZA docket 039-26, it's been moved by Commissioner James, seconded by Commissioner Diaz to defer the matter 60 days. Roll call vote, Todd James.
Yes.
Tamara Eggins.
Yes.
Jose Alvarez. Ramiro Diaz.
Yes.
Alfonso Gonzalez.
Yay.
And Candace Forrest, yay. 6 yeas, no nays, the motion carries. Next item.
BCA docket 040-26 is for the property located at 1041 Dumaine Street. The site currently consists of a commercial structure on a lot with frontage on Dumaine Street. The associated request is for a variance from the provisions of Article 9, Section 9.3.a, Table 9-2 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance to permit a subdivision resulting in insufficient open space ratio. The subject site was constructed nearly 100 years prior to the adoption of the current CZO and is part of a much larger complex of buildings featuring surface parking. The lot lines currently measure out approximately 18 feet by 56 feet, with the proposed lot lines narrowing the lot to roughly 15 foot by 32 foot, bringing the open space ratio to 0. Staff finds that the approval standards A1, A3, A4, A5, and B1 for this request have not been met, and that the request for the variance is based primarily upon a desire to serve the convenience or profit of the property owner or other interested party, among other reasons. Therefore, staff recommends denial. However, should the board recommend approval of the requested variance, staff recommend one proviso.
Thank you. Is the applicant present for BZA docket 040-26?
Hi, my name is Mary Grace Burgess. Address is 800 Barone Street, and I'm here on behalf of the owner to present our variance request for 1041 Dumaine Street. Our request involves no change to any existing structures or characteristics of the site as it exists currently. There's no construction of any kind associated with this. We're simply here to request the ability to move a lot line, to have an existing restaurant on one lot of record and an existing apartment building and parking lot on the other. City Planning originally approved our re-subdivision request. However, after the fact, noticed because of the open space requirements, we did need a variance. The open space on the site does not change in any way, shape, or form. As part of this proposal, one lot will receive a bit more open space and another a little less, but no overall change. We do want to thank the staff for a good staff report, recommending in favor on many of the criteria, and I'm happy to help close the gap on the remaining few. The staff report did identify a precedent for this request located at 1231 Bourbon Street. They were approved to re-subdivide 2 townhomes into individual properties where the individual lots did not meet the open space requirement, but the overall lot did. The intent is simply to align the lot lines with the existing uses on the property. The current lot line cuts through the existing parking lot, so the revision is intended to correct that condition and ensure the parking area is contained within its property lot of record and able to be used by the residents of the apartment. As of now, that property line is very close to the front door of the apartments. We do have a letter of support from a neighbor, Dr. Brobson Lutz, who states he hopes to see those apartments rented to full-time residents, and the usability of this parking lot is key. Happy to answer any questions. I also did print an aerial image showing where the lot.
Thank you. Is anyone else here in support of the applicant for BZA docket 040-26?
Miles Granson, 800 Barone. Not going to say a whole lot, just
Pick up the mic.
Miles Granson, 800 Barone. Not going to say a whole lot, just going to note that Mary Grace noted that CPC had approved the resub. It actually went all the way to getting a declaration of title change, so went all the way that far. And one thing I'll also note is in terms of, Mary Grace mentioned as far as the criteria that staff deemed not met, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that there's not a lot of precedent. Well, I think the fact that there's not a lot of precedent actually speaks to the fact that the condition of 0 lot lines is pretty common in the quarter. So I think the lack of precedent might actually speak to precedent in a reverse way in that sense. So I think that actually that point I think gets largely to a lot of the not met criteria, and then also in terms of the other part to note is, as Mary Grace noted, there are existing uses. This kind of lines it up with that. You've got the existing apartment complex and the parking lot for it. This doesn't change the use. So in terms of anything special for the owner or gaining anything, convenience or profit, they're continuing the use as it has been for many years. So it shouldn't be anything too unique as far as that goes.
Thank you. Is anyone else here in support of the applicant for BZA docket 040-26? Anyone here in opposition? Any questions from the board?
Miles R. It's just a quick question for y'all. I know that there's a lot of notations related to some of the encroachments that exist on the perimeter of the site. Is that something that's addressed via that same title work?
Onto the public right away?
No, into the adjoining into H2A.
So what this should do, this resub, and Mary Grace, correct me if I'm wrong, this resub should align,
Clear all
it
of
should
those
clear
out.
all encroachments, so it should align the property line with the actual structure in the back.
Got it. Just have to ask a question, just coming off of what the last docket item was, and when we get into how elements do encroach beyond the building edge, just how did that really play out? All right. Can y'all at least just add more color to A4, which is the variance is not primarily based on convenience or profit language?
So, ideally here, the issue that we're trying to correct, probably can't see it from there, is that this property line, it intersects the parking lot as it is currently. So currently to park and actually use this space, the residents are actually parking on the other property, which is not, moving forward is not really how we want to have this. So in addition, there's no access. This building, no one can actually access that lot because there's a gate here and a fence. So how this it's really helping the residents so that they can use their parking lot for those apartments, and it makes the usability of the apartments feasible. Helpful.
And I think that because the existing use is what's maintained, there's not anything new or changing. It's not a profit-driven matter in the sense that there's no new profit that's going to be gained by that. There's no new parking spaces, no new anything. It's just formalizing the
Cleaning up the formal use.
formalizing the nonconformity that's been there for a while.
Right. We were actually surprised to see that that's where the property line was.
Okay.
Yeah, if motion's in order. Any other questions or?
Yeah, proceed.
In regards to docket 4026, I move to, were there any provisos? One, okay. I move for approval with the noted proviso, citing the letter and the discussion today.
Second.
Thank you. Excuse me. With regards to BZA docket 040-26, it's been moved by Commissioner Diaz, second by Commissioner Gonzalez to grant the requested waiver, finding that the 9 criteria have been met and adopting commentary from today as well as the applicant's submission to establish that the 9 criteria have been met and subject to one proviso. A roll call vote. Todd James.
Yes.
Jose Alvarez.
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz.
Yes.
Alfonso Gonzalez.
Yay.
And Candace Forrest, yay. 5 yeas, no nays, the motion carries. Next item.
BCA 4126 is a request to permit the creation of lots with insufficient lot area, insufficient lot width, insufficient lot depth, insufficient front yard, interior side yard, corner side yard, and rear setbacks. The subject property is an irregularly shaped corner lot that contains a 2-family dwelling. The applicant wishes for each dwelling to occupy its own separate lot of record so that the subject property is also the subject of subdivision case SD 115-24. The proposed lots are both deficient in the aforementioned dimensional requirements, hence the need for waivers to be granted before the subdivision can be approved and certified for recordation. Due to the subject property's size and shape and the respective orientation of the 2 subject dwellings, there is simply no way to create 2 separate wholly compliant lots, which would allow either or both of the dwellings to be conveyed independent of the other. Therefore, the staff recommends approval of BZA 4126, subject to the proviso cited in the staff report.
Thank you. Is the applicant present for BZA docket 041-26?
Good morning, Johnston Burkhardt on behalf of the applicant. My address is 935 Gravier Street, Suite 1800. Here for any questions or concerns, and I thank you for your time and request approval today.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in support of the applicant for BZA docket 041-26? Anyone here in opposition? Any questions from the board?
For motions in order.
Yes, proceed.
Madam Chair, regards to BZA docket number 041-26, my motion is to accept the staff's recommendation for the requested waivers for proposed Lot 23A and proposed Lot 23B, and move for approval with the one noted proviso, understanding that the 9 criteria have been met.
Second.
Thank you. With regards to BZA docket 041-26, it's been moved by Commissioner James, seconded by Commissioner Gonzalez, to grant the requested waivers of proposed lots 23A and lot 23B, finding that the 9 criteria have been met, subject to one proviso. Roll call vote. Todd James?
Yes.
Tamara Eggins? Yes. Jose Alvarez? Ramiro Diaz?
Yes.
Alfonso Gonzalez?
Yay.
And Candace Forrest? Yay. 6 yeas, no nays. The motion carries. Next item.
Item number 9, BZA docket 042-26 has been withdrawn. The next item is BZA docket 044-26 for the property at 932 Arabella Street. This request is for variances from the comprehensive zoning ordinance to permit the construction of a single-family dwelling with more than 2 1/2 total number of bathrooms and insufficient off-street parking. The applicant proposes the construction of a 5-bedroom, single-family dwelling with 4 1/2 bathrooms and 1 off-street parking space. Due to the site's location within the University Area Parking Overlay District, variances to permit the insufficient off-street parking and excessive number of bathrooms are required. Based on this report, the staff finds that the following standards are not met and that there are no special conditions peculiar to the land or structure involved. The request is based primarily on the desire to serve the convenience or profit of the owner or other interested party. Strict adherence to the regulations will not result in a demonstrable hardship. Therefore, staff recommends denial of the requested variances. However, if the board finds that the request meets all of the approval standards of the standards of variances of Article 4, Section 46F, staff recommends one proviso.
Is the applicant present for BZA docket 044-26? Is there anyone here in support of the applicant for BZA docket 044-26?
He's here. I just don't know where he went. Zach.
Is there anyone here in opposition? If he's here, do you want to, oh, I think he's running in.
Apologies, Board. Zach Smith, 1000 South Norman C. Francis. We really appreciate the staff's report on this one. As you all know, we have seen several of these very similar projects where someone who is building a single-family house is essentially just not able to have the same rights as folks that do currently live in single-family homes. This is par for the course. This will be a project that as soon as it is completed, will hit the market and is listed and being built purely for as a single-family home. Per the report, for A1, again, similar structures in the district and all around are allowed to be built. This property will seek and get a homestead exemption as soon as it is finished being constructed and sold. For A4, per the staff, there is no other place to put, again, 2 specifically unique independent parking spaces that would not be able to interfere with each other. And then for A5, again, this is going to be a single-family home, and if it was fully occupied and fully constructed, or if this was some sort of renovation, this would be exempt. All of those reasons, we hope that this board can continue its consistent approach in approving this appeal. Thank you. Waiver.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in support of the applicant for BZA docket 044-26? Anyone here in opposition? Any questions from the board? Oh, I'm sorry. Opposition?
Good morning, Commissioner.
Pull the mic up, please.
I'm not quite sure how to do this. Is that better?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Gary Silbert. My wife and I live at 933 Arabella Street, directly across the street from this development. And we're here in strong opposition to the developer's plans. I think the staff got it right. This is all about the profit of the owner. Specifically, he's talking about, he's working on improvements of a 4,400 square foot property at the same time, in the same footprint, developing a 3,866 square foot new home. In the area that we live, we have the Romney Pilates studio, we have Saba Restaurant, Whole Foods, and just a zillion retail outlets on Magazine Street. The point is, we're under heavy pressure for parking. As a senior citizen, my wife and I come home with groceries and from socializing and out and about, and more often than not, we cannot find a parking space. As a matter of convenience and safety, I mean, dragging our groceries for a block and a half isn't right. Coming in after hours in the dark and not, worrying where we're going to park is inappropriate. And lastly, and most importantly, we moved into this neighborhood almost 20 years ago, and this, it's such an attractive, beautiful neighborhood, and what is being proposed ruins the beautiful nature of the neighborhood, and strongly encourage you to follow your staff's advice and not approve this variance. Finally, as my wife says, love is like a parking spot. The good ones are all gone. Thank you.
Morning. My name is Eugenie Lyman, and I live at 919 Arabella Street. I've lived on this block in 3 different houses for over 40 years. Bryce Reevely, the previous owner of 936 Arabella, lived there for longer than that. And she lived in that house like the treasure that it was, honoring the beauty and integrity of the oldest house on the block, and surely among the oldest in the entire neighborhood. Within a week at the onset of renovation by Crescent City developers, everything that had any intrinsic value to be reaped was gone. Antique glass was shattered, the yard was stripped of beautiful landscaping, mature trees and plantings, and replaced by dumpsters into which 12-inch baseboards, door frames, and all of the trim were thrown out. All of it was virgin cypress, and it's all irreplaceable now. They've shown a complete disregard for the fabric of a cherished neighborhood. The house is now a monstrous windowless box extending to the full allowance for the property. This is not a one-off. When I mentioned to one of the HDLC deputy directors in a conversation a stop work notice that I had seen on a house on State Street that Crescent City Developers was renovating, it was cited for removing more of the building than was permitted. I was told that they were known to the HDLC. Forgiveness rather than permission is their modus operandi, as others have referenced or will reference in their opposition. They're currently permitted for a two-bedroom house on the decimated lot. Let them build just that, please. It is at least of a size appropriate for the neighborhood. Anything else is purely greed. The stated purpose of the HDLC is preserving and protecting and regulating building sites and districts of historical importance. It safeguards the city's heritage, enhances neighborhood quality, improves property value, and manages growth. We are all so grateful for Planner Valerie Goines' recommendation for denial of all of these variances. We respectfully ask that you not reward the arrogance and disrespect with which Crescent City Developers approaches their destruction of one of the most unique neighborhoods in the country, and ask that you deny them both permission and forgiveness. Thank you so much for your time.
Hello, I'm Margaret Silverstein. I live at 939 Nashville, directly behind the new development. Thank you for your service. Thanks for being here today and listening to us. I ask that you deny the application. There are a number of reasons. First of all, he doesn't comply with the 9 conditions. He will not be deprived of the right to build a single-family home. He's just going to have to build it according to the requirements. He can't shove a huge house into this 31-foot lot. With respect to the special conditions and circumstances, he created those. He subdivided the lot. The property used to be a side garden for 936 Arabella. He subdivided it, and now he intends to build a house with 5 bedrooms, 4.5 bathrooms on a 31-foot wide former yard. So he created these problems for himself. And the house is not consistent with the neighborhood. Arabella isn't Nashville Avenue. It isn't Eleanor Street. It isn't State. These blocks are mostly populated by small, single-story houses. Yes, there are some bigger houses, but for the most part on these 3 or 4 blocks, it's single-story houses. And shoving a 5-bedroom, 4.5 bath house onto this little lot is... it just doesn't fit in with the neighborhood. And finally, it's going to be a problem with the parking. You put 5 people who can drive in that house, 3 teenagers, 2 parents, you've got 5 cars, and you've got 1 parking spot. And that's just unacceptable. So we request that you deny the application, and thank you for your consideration.
Is this thing on? There we go. I am Robert Witkowski at 913 Arabella Street. I'm in the neighborhood, obviously. I don't envy any of the decision-making in this process. I've been in your seats before. What I will say is I come from the era of greed is good. I am a big fan of property rights and making money and doing all that, particularly with real estate. However, with this particular project, while the original intent was a single-family dwelling with 2 full baths and 1 full number of bathrooms, that was entirely in keeping with this. If any of you, and I would encourage you, if the decision's waived for a while, to care to look at this lot. If you looked at it, you might feel comfortable putting a lap pool in it. It's extraordinarily narrow. So the concept of a 5-bedroom house with this many bathrooms, honestly, I'm sure I'd love to see the plans. I'm sure they're great, but it's almost incomprehensible. It's almost thinking about it as the size of the building that already exists, which is pretty monstrous. It really comes down to density, and this being a city, there's appropriate levels of that. And I think, again, I will affirm previous comments that I think the judgment and the concerns and the denial is appropriate at this stage. I welcome the development if it cares to go forward in terms of a project and a footprint that's more appropriate for the space. Thank you.
Annette Patton, 929 Arabella. This request by Crescent City Developers is purely motivated by a desire for profit that does not meet the criteria needed for variances. Since purchasing the house, Mr. Fabre and Crescent City Developers have proven that they are not interested in preserving the character of the house nor the integrity of our neighborhood, but merely are motivated by profit. Just days after the purchase, interior architectural elements began being removed from the house. For over 20 years, we have lived directly across the street from this development. We, as well as several other neighbors, do not have off-street parking. Adding 2 driveways between 932 Arabella and 936 Arabella, the other development that he is working on the same lot, which they've subdivided, with 10 bedrooms between the 2 houses will further burden all of the current neighbors as street parking will be removed by these houses and more cars will be added to the neighborhood. Our neighbors, Dana Atchison and Eric Hardy, have already submitted to you and clearly outlined the criteria which have not been met. Standard 6 has not been met. Strict adherence to the regulations would not result in a demonstrable hardship upon the owner, as distinguished from mere inconvenience. This is not a hardship. He is building it to sell for profit. He does not plan to live in the house that he is building, although he said he would on the application. Standard 7 has not been met. According to his application, the purpose of the request is to allow the property owner to construct their primary residence and occupy the home once the construction is completed. As he is merely building the house to sell for profit, he does not intend to live there as stated. Standard 9 has not been met, as granting this property variance will substantially increase the congestion in the public street. The increased density will increase the number of cars parked near the corner of Arabella and Chestnut. If 932 and 936 are each sold to families who have teenagers drivers, there is the potential to add at least 10 new cars on our block. This is just too much.
That's the end of your time, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank
Can I
you.
have my husband's time?
Did he speak?
Did he already?
He's next. Can I have his time?
That's
Yeah.
Clyde?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Furthermore,
Spoken
there are
like a
several
wife.
inconsistencies which were submitted to safety and permits
Oh.
when he got his permits to develop for these developments. In October, Crescent City Developers purchased the parcel at 936 Arabella, a house on a 75 by 120 lot, which was listed as a 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom house. Just 9 days later, the same 5-bedroom, 4-bath house was listed for sale by him. He bought it for $1.1 million. He listed that 5-bedroom, 4-bath house for $1.9 million. This 5-bedroom, 4-bath house continued to be on the market until the listing expired a few weeks ago. In the meantime, however, permits were applied for so that the house at 936 Arabella could be renovated. Ironically, the stamp plans submitted to safety and permits state that the house at 936 Arabella is a 5-bedroom, 5-bath house. It's not a 5-bedroom, 5-bath house. It never was a 5-bedroom, 5-bath house. He should have gotten a variance for that one too. The house was not a 5-bathroom house. On the plans, where he put a bathroom was actually a bedroom closet. It was portrayed as a bathroom. It seems as though the developers were skirting the need for a variance at 936 Arabella also when adding a 5th bathroom for the property, and they succeeded. How many bathrooms will be at 936 Arabella? Shouldn't the developer have applied for a variance for that one too? Crescent City Developers has already proven to be an untrustworthy neighbor with the house at 936 Arabella. One needs to only look at NOLA One Stop to see that multiple submissions of plans have already been made for the house at 932 Arabella. When the need for a variance arose, he submitted plans and has already received a permit to build a 2,000 square foot, a 2-bedroom house with the same exact footprint as the 4,000 square foot house that he's trying to build. Do we really think it's going to be a 2-bedroom house that he's going to build? The permit states the house is going to be 2,866 square feet, but the plans submitted show that it's 3,866 square feet.
That's the end of your time, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in opposition? The applicant has an opportunity to rebut.
I'm just here for questions if you guys need anything. My point's been made. It's a consistent application, and here if there's anything I can try to help answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Just some initial comments. What I want to make sure that we're clear on in terms of what we did here, some of the testimony, at least from those opposed to the application, relative to density and proposed use. If this property was within a different footprint of the city, none of these waivers would be reviewed. This is exclusively tied to the university area, off-street parking overlay district. If this would have been a property that was an existing structure, where someone did have a homestead exemption filed, that same project would not have to apply for waivers or variances. So I think where I want to make sure I point redirect some of the issues. a lot of what the concerns are from the neighbors are pertinent to who is actually performing the work and handling the ownership of the property versus what's actually within the CZO and what they may or may not be allowed to do. We have been seeing a ton of these applications recently where it's a lot of individual single-family homes, some purchased by individual, ready to go to construction, but because they don't have a homestead exemption on this site, they're required to come in front of us for waivers and variances. So I get the frustration, especially when you're observing something that you've seen modified substantially in front of you. But what we have to be careful from at least the BZA perspective is solely what we are here to review. Typically, any other site, I don't think they would be required to have additional parking stalls. This would only be one, correct, Valerie? For any traditional single-family home outside of the overlay? That's correct. And nor would there be any restrictions on the number of bathrooms. So I just want to make sure we're clearly addressing what's in front of us and what was the intent of how this overlay was originally drafted to be enforced. This was about preventing properties that were being converted into student housing, not single-family occupancy, two very distinct uses and how they would function as a property. So don't want y'all to hear this and think that we're just unilaterally just following one thing. I want to make sure we're clearly articulating what we're here to review. I know you're raising your hand for a question. I'll welcome one question, but it needs to be brief because I at least want to. But you got to come to the mic. You got to come to the microphone. It's got to be on record.
My question is, you said that if it weren't in the overlay district, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And the reason that it was in the overlay district is to prevent this from happening, actually. It is in the overlay district. And how do we know that this is going to be a owner-occupied house? As on our block, we have others that are not owner-occupied. They do not have homestead exemption.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is in the overlay district has rules for a reason. And this is why they do have the rules so that things like this don't continue to happen. We don't know. This could be a double storm for Tulane. We are close enough to that it could be.
When I look at the nature of how the plan is submitted and the characteristics of that floor plan, it does not read as if though this is for student housing. I just wanted to at least provide the opportunity for you to have commentary, but at the same time provide clarity based off of what's before us and how we review it. But again, I'm one person. I don't have any further comment, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring up the one distinction. I definitely understand that typically when these have been brought before us, it's been an owner that has run into the situation where if they would have already had a homestead exemption, they would not have to go through this process. This one is a little bit different because I do think we have to at least acknowledge the fact that we don't know what this is going to turn into going forward. So this does present a slightly different scenario than what we've dealt with before, because this isn't a situation where the person before us is the one that's going to occupy the property at the end of the day. So that is a bit of a distinction from the ones that have normally come before us.
Question to staff. In the case of an approval, the plan as is currently shown and proposed, would that plan be able to be modified in order to reflect something that would be closer to a traditional rental style layout based on if we were to grant the waivers as is currently shown? Or does the plan?
Phrased another way, if we approve it as it is and then they go and change the internal floor plan, because we're solely looking at the zoning, right? So if
We're just looking at the number of bathrooms and bedrooms, as long as it's not increased.
It's just a number. It's not
the
necessarily the
layout
plan. You can't lock the plan.
Right.
Yeah, and technically, safety and permits would have to approve it as well, but as far as the scope of a variance approval, we would be looking at no increase in number of bedrooms and bathrooms, and that would be within the scope of what was approved today if it's approved.
And just playing that thought process out, because what's playing in the back of my mind is if for some reason the developer is not able to sell this as a single-family home, the concern is that it
Does it
could
get retrofitted?
ultimately get retrofitted to something that could be sellable as rental units.
Yeah, and I guess I'm just echoing, so by right, if it weren't for the IZD, they wouldn't be before us, right? That said, the IZD, we have been.
If it weren't for the IZD and if it weren't a scenario where it was already, they already had a homestead exemption. They still could be within the IZD and have a homestead exemption.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So the other ones that we've been reviewing where we give a grace is because there is a homeowner that's already in place. So a buyer or a
Or somebody that's
somebody's
renovating their
renovating the
existing
building, yeah.
property.
So I'm totally seeing that shade. So yeah, it's great.
This just feels a bit more of a slippery slope than the others, and that's why I just wanted to bring up that there is a bit of a distinction from how they've normally been before us, and not in any way trying to frame, the current developer in any negative light, but just explaining that there is a bit of a distinction that puts things a little bit more out of our hands than what we've normally had before us.
Which even in those cases, they could have still gone ahead with the permit, completed that project, and still sold that property. So I'm just, in the cases where we've had a property owner come in, I mean, that could almost be the property owner doing it as a developer themselves. So I just want to make sure we're very careful in terms of how we look at it and frame this accordingly. I'm not trying to.
I mean, I
that's the
get
only
it.
time
It's
just
a
throwing
back
out
and
there.
forth.
It is.
I think what the point is, we know that this property is going to be sold. That's not something that's been before us before. So I get the hypotheticals, but the one definite is that this is a property that's slated to be sold.
I'm just throwing that comment out there for us to just consider downstream in future applications that still can apply for any other property owner that we have extended that grace to.
And it just goes back to taking this out of our hands and maybe addressing this, in the appropriate place where it needs to be, to look at how this overlay district is crafted.
Yep.
And this is not an HDLC zone, right? This is just HDLC for demolition. Is that right? Yeah.
Valerie, or is this a full?
This is partial control, right?
Partial,
HDLC.
full HDLC.
Yeah, I don't think it doesn't go before the architectural review, I don't think.
That's correct. It's in the Uptown, which is a partial control district.
Yeah, I mean, that's to the scale and massing of the building and all that. It's as I said, by right, if it weren't for the, yeah.
Mr. Smith, I know that you aren't the developer, you're just here on behalf of, so I want to make sure frustration is appropriately directed. With regards to the plan and how it's shown, do you think there would be a temperature for the developer to look at a plan modification that may at least offset what would be the required parking to provide the two off-street compliant stalls? Is that something that you might be able to review with them?
I mean, we certainly can look at it. I mean, you know, when we talk about what the look of this neighborhood looks like, you'd either have to create a situation where you essentially shrink the entire building to where it's a narrow building that I'm just going to assume does not really match the architecture and aesthetic of the area to have a, whatever the width of the first bay is. The second would be we can jack the house up in the air and drive underneath it and solve that problem.
Well, is it that, do they
but I-
have to be adjacent, or can they be in tandem?
They can't be tandem.
They can't be tandem because of the
You
overlay.
got to have these individual parking spaces.
Right.
And I go back to, you know, when we look at this and say, yes, it is in the overlay, remember that the intent, if we go into Article 18, the intent is specifically to try and derail what the CZO refers to, even though it's ill-defined or undefined, short-term. It is specifically mentioned. It's called the university area overlay. Again, if this building were to be built right now, as let's just call it a 2-2, any property owner that this is sold to could literally do anything they wanted the second they got a homestead exemption in here. I do hear the board's position about, hey, this is the first time this has come to you guys with a, hey, it's the developer looking to sell it. I would propose, you know, I'm all about trying to come up with a workable solution that can make some guarantees here, is if the board's comfortable with it, if the staff are comfortable with it, and ultimately maybe even the law department comfortable with it, specifically locking in this floor plan as a proviso to this approval, which I know is sometimes anticipated, but the idea that this could turn into a million other things, I mean, I've been battling that slippery slope argument for 17 years. And 99.999% of the time, it never even was attempted to happen. So if there's a way to literally lock in this floor plan and say, you know, if somebody in the future wants to come mess around, especially a non-owner who's subject to Article 18, so be it, and they got to come back in front of this board. But this group clearly is developing this land to sell this for a single-family home. If they sold this plan to me to come and build this, or you know, they built part of it and then we got a homestead and came back to it, we wouldn't even be here. So can they explore it, to your question, Mr. James? I'm sure they can. I'm not quite sure how it's going to look, but I'm sure they could. But at the end of the day, I don't really think that is the one space, two space doesn't seem to actually be the issue. You know, if this was 10 blocks another way,
Be less.
it'd be a different story. That all revolves around parking. You know, it's amazing though, no matter where we're building, it always turns into parking. I know there's a long sought after, you know, opposition to a certain grocery store. It's about parking. Everything tends to boil down to parking. But yeah, my best thought immediately is, again, knowing that this floor plan is just not made for student housing, to literally lock this in as a proviso for a period of time or for indefinitely, in a way that's obviously not going to destroy somebody's property rights when they come back to it, when it is a single-family home and somebody does live there with a homestead exemption. So that's the only thing I wouldn't want to have subject somebody to something that's well beyond the pale. But at the end of the day, if it's sometimes you got to solve for today, and yeah, can it be explored? I mean, just about anything can be explored. I think it's going to look like some very goofy housing stock if this gets fully compliant parking spaces, because they're going to either have to go all the way to.
And that's if they were next to each other. In my head, I'm looking at the plan exclusively through tandem parking, not.
No, you can't.
Yeah, that's not gonna.
Remember, tandem is one of the
It's
reasons
very,
we're
it's
following
one
the
of,
Gulf
yep,
of Mexico.
correct, and that's exactly why the parking thing is triggered the way it is.
Not enough parking is the reason why we're going to no longer exist as a city in 50 years. That was in that report a week ago, I think. But I'm sorry,
You cracking EDO jokes, but that's all right.
Well, I mean, the other way to look at this is just the scale of it, which is what the neighborhood was concerned about, was just the scale of the development, and that, you know, if you reduce the number of rooms, then you could also meet the requirements. So I think that's where I struggle here, because, you know, it does feel quite large for the site. And then, you know, we had an earlier case today where somebody, and I know, granted, it was multifamily, but, you know, we were, you know, holding them to a parking standard as well there. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I think that's what the first time that it came up, and I was laughed at when I brought up the point, but I think that's where we get stuck with the discussion of permitting a certain number of bathrooms. It feels very inappropriate to dictate to someone how many, because it's not bedrooms that that are before us, it's the bathrooms. And so, it's triggered by some of the other things, but it's triggered by the bedrooms. But literally, when this came up the very first time, there was a request for, I want to say it was like 6 or 7 bathrooms. And it becomes questionable to start to ask what is the appropriate number of bathrooms to allow someone to have. And so we get into some of these wonky arguments, basically. And it goes back to the point of if there were a homestead exemption, none of this would even have to be asked. So it's not, the scale is I don't want to say to be questioned, but it's putting us back into that world of how do we judge, what's appropriate.
So I keep going back to that. By right, if it weren't for the IZD and if it
Yeah.
weren't for the homestead, then they would be able to do it and it wouldn't be before us. So I struggle with this IZD
Absolutely.
tremendously.
And this isn't the only one on the agenda today. Just to Mr. Smith's, to your suggestion, I don't, we always say that each of us is just one board member. I think given what some of my points were, some of what you suggested in terms of a potential proviso may resolve some of that angst, but I don't know what the pleasure of the board may be, and I don't know if it really solves I know those are some of the points I made. I don't know if that solves what everyone else's questions may be in terms of whether or not that may be a viable solution.
I will at least state, in part, that's why I brought up the question initially, is there an opportunity where a plan can be locked? Is ultimately what I was alluding to and why I asked staff. So I see it as at least a mechanism. At the end of the day, a lot of this is us having to react to whatever case is. Some of it we learn from, some of it works out perfectly. So this is the bit of the nuance of how do we still push and promote development, but at the same time, stay within the confines or at least protect the interests of everybody else around it. Because again, it meets the minimum lot standards. So no other waivers exist on this site outside of just the university overlay component. So,
and I'm just trying not to have us create a precedent,
Oh, no,
where
definitely.
someone now comes and says, well, this was granted in this case. And that's where I get to the slippery slope argument of how far can we go with this and not create a situation where we've basically undone the viability of the overlay district.
If I may, if I may, since there wasn't a.
Pull the,
If I may, since there wasn't a motion yet on the floor. The property owners had just shot me a text. They were able to catch a couple in there, and just wanted to say one thing as a factual note. They built over 100 houses, and every single one of them has been a single-family home. They've never built or operated, or their houses have never been anything other than a single-family home, for what it's worth. So when we talk about track record, I think that's an important note to see what this building is planned to be, what it's being built as, and what it will be. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure that, again, appreciate the comment, but again, this is the one-off that they haven't done 100 of these. So it's kind of I have to still at least be very open and appreciate multiple points, hence why we have the discussion in the first place. So do appreciate the perspective of my colleagues.
I don't know how other folks on the board feel, but I'm struggling with this one quite a bit, and I'm maybe going to request, I'm not sure even if a deferral would help here, if there's anything that the developer could do to satisfy us a little better, because I'm going to move for denial if, and that's my opinion right now, so. If that makes sense if there's any room there for
Yeah, I think
changing the
only way
development plan.
Right. I think the only way that we can move on a deferral is if there's really an ability to make a change to the plan.
So that's where I'm standing. So if a motion's in order, in regards to docket 4426, I'm going to move to accept the staff's recommendation for denial.
Second.
Thank you. With regards to BZA docket 044-26, it's been moved by Commissioner Diaz, second by Commissioner Gonzalez, to deny the requested waivers, finding that the 9 criteria have not been met. Roll call vote, Todd James.
Yay.
Tamara Eggins.
No.
Jose Alvarez.
No.
Ramiro Diaz.
Yes.
Alfonso Gonzalez.
Yay.
And Candace Forrest, yay.
4-2.
Thank you. 4 yays, 2 nays. The motion carries. Next item.
Item number 9, BZA docket, item number 11, BZA docket 04526 has been rendered moot.
The next item is BZA docket 4626 for a property located at 518 Walnut Street. This request is for a variance from the provisions of Article 18, Section 18.30.B2, University Area Off-Street Overlay District Parking, and Section 18.30.B.4, University Area Off-Street Parking Overlay District bathrooms, to permit the construction of a single-family dwelling with more than 2 full and 1/2 total number of bathrooms and insufficient off-street parking. The property owner seeks to combine 2 of the 6 units in this condominium structure to create a larger single-family dwelling with 7 bedrooms and 5 1/2 bathrooms. In accordance with Article 18, Section 18.30.B.2, 3 bedrooms are permitted in the University Area Off-Street Parking Overlay District before additional parking is required. Because the previous dwelling enjoyed 4 bedrooms, the new combined dwelling is deemed to be increasing the number of bedrooms by 3, necessitating 3 parking spaces. 2 spaces were already provided in the condo parking area, 1 for each existing unit, necessitating a waiver of 1 parking space. In accordance with Article 18, Section 18.30.B.4, the maximum number of permitted bathrooms in the University Area Off-Street Parking Overlay District is 2.5. In the case of this property, there is a legal nonconforming condition wherein the existing units maintain 4 1/2 bathrooms. The applicant's proposing a total of 5 1/2 bathrooms and is thus seeking a waiver of 1 bathroom. While the lot configuration does constitute a special condition for the provision of additional parking at this site, it does not hinder compliance, as the applicant could simply reduce the number of proposed bedrooms. The applicant's request for 5 1/2 bathrooms is not related to the land or structure involved having a special circumstance, nor are there any special conditions preventing the applicant from compliance. The staff believes the request does not satisfy the 9 criteria as they pertain to a requested variance of Article 18, Section 18.30.B.2, University Area Off-Street Parking Overlay District parking, failing to meet criteria A3 and A5 of the standards for variances of Article 4, Section 4.6.f, Article 18, Section 18.30.B.4, University Off-Street Parking Overlay District bathrooms, fails to meet criteria A1, A3, A4, and A5 of the standards for variances of Article 4, Section 4.6.f. Therefore, the staff recommends denial of the requested variances. However, should the board find that the request meets all 9 approval standards of the standards for variances, staff recommends the following provisos. The applicant shall submit the following plans reflecting the approval of Board of Zoning Adjustments, including compliance with all noted provisos as applicable to BZA staff for review and approval. These plans shall be the plans for which the building permit is issued, the site plan and the floor plans.
Thank you. Is the applicant present for BZA docket 046-26?
Hi, Kristen Galat. Home address is 27407 Clement Drive in Abita. So we are in the overlay district. We do not want additional parking. And this is kind of a funky one because we are currently a multifamily building in a single-family district. So our homeowner has purchased a second condo in the building and is wishing to combine the two units into one larger single-family home for their family.
Is that the end of your comments? Is there anyone else here in support of the applicant for BZA docket 046-26?
Hi, Charlotte Dawson, owner of the property. I put on my form that the property address, I actually live in Texas right now, in this fiery debate a moment ago. My husband's career is winding down. We will be applying for our homestead exemption once these two units are combined into a single-family home. It is not a development. This is for us. I am from here. I grew up here. I'm coming back here. We are just big New Orleans people, and I'm excited to be for this potential and to be coming back and can answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in support of the applicant for BZA docket 046-26? Anyone here in opposition? Any questions from the board?
Just to clarify, the parking in the back, there's a certain number of spaces, but there's a certain number of residents in the building, and technically you're actually reducing the number of people that would be in the building, right? Because there would have been two units, you're combining into one.
So each unit has a parking space. So there are 6 units in the back. Even when combined, there'll still be 6 spots, and I would be allocated the 2 I was originally allocated from the very beginning.
Okay.
For what it's worth, I'm asking for fewer street spots. I'm not asking for the maximum allocation. So we won't be taking more spaces if that's an issue.
Off street.
Yes, off
Yeah,
street.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah.
So quick question, you have control of one of the units already, or in a process of purchasing the second, or did you buy both? Okay. I'm good.
The motion's in order. So, noting that every case is unique. In regards to docket 4626, I move to actually approve the request with the recommended proviso, citing that 9 criteria have been met, referencing the conversation and the attached letter.
Second.
Provisos?
Yeah, I said with the provisos.
Okay,
With the
I
noted
didn't-
provisos. One
Thanks.
proviso, yeah.
He whispers some, it's okay.
I thought it was 2 provisos.
I was mumbling.
One.
Just one.
Thanks. Thank you. With regards to BZA docket 046-26, it's been moved by Commissioner Diaz, second by Commissioner Eggins, to grant the requested waivers, finding that the 9 criteria have been met, adopting the commentary as well as the applicant's submission to establish that the 9 criteria have been met, subject to 1 proviso. Roll call vote, Todd James.
Yes.
Tamara Eggins.
Yes.
Jose Alvarez.
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz.
Yes.
Alfonso Gonzalez.
Yay.
And Candace Forrest. Yay. 6 yeas, no nays. The motion carries. Next item.
We will now begin. We will now begin with deferral requests for variances.
024.
The next item is BZA docket 02426 for a property located at 1309 Harmony Street. The request is for variances from the provisions of Article 21, Section 21.6.n.1.a, fence height to permit a fence with excessive height. This is an after-the-fact request. The previous survey submitted indicated a fence along or near the Chestnut Street property line. However, it was unclear whether the fence was located on the subject property or on the adjacent lot. Staff requested additional documentation on March 9th, 2026 to accurately reflect the fence's location. Staff received the updated survey on April 24th, 2026, which indicates the fence is located on the subject property. Additionally, the applicant has initiated a review with the Department of Safety and Permits to determine whether the existing fence is compliant with the applicable regulations due to a grade difference between the subject property and the adjacent property, which could negate the need for board action and render the variance moot. Therefore, staff recommends a 30-day deferral to provide sufficient time for resolution of the outstanding compliance determination.
Is there anyone here in support of the applicant for BZA docket 024-26? Anyone here in opposition? Any questions from the board?
Motion's in order.
Yes, proceed.
Madam Chair, in regards to BZA docket number 024-26, my motion is to accept the staff's request for a 30-day deferral.
Second.
Thank you. With regards to BZA docket 024-26, it's been moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Diaz, to defer the item 30 days at the request of staff. Roll call vote. Todd James.
Yes.
Tamara Eggins.
Yes.
Jose Alvarez.
Yay.
Ramiro Diaz.
Yes.
Alfonso Gonzalez.
Yay.
And Candace Forrest, yay. 6 yeas, no nays. The motion carries. Next item.
The next item is BZA docket 4326 for the property at 2518 Burgundy Street. This request is for variances to permit ground-based mechanical equipment with insufficient distance from the interior side lot line. The applicant is proposing a setback of 1 foot 4 inches. The requirement is 2 feet, and they are requesting a waiver of 8 inches. The staff is requesting a 30-day deferral as it came to light that a survey was not included with the original application submittal, and we need the survey to verify the correct setback measurements. So staff is recommending a 30-day deferral.
Is there anyone here in support of the applicant for BZA docket 043-26? Anyone here in opposition? Any questions from the board?
For motions in order.
Yes, proceed. Yes, proceed.
Madam Chair, with regards to BZA docket number 043-26, my motion's for a 30-day deferral at the recommendation of staff.
Second.
Thank you. With regards to BZA docket 043-26, it's been moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Alvarez, to defer the matter 30 days at the request of staff. Roll call vote. Todd James.
Yes.
Tamara Eggins.
Yes.
Jose Alvarez.
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz.
Yes.
Alfonso Gonzalez.
Yay.
And Candace Forrest, yay. 6 yeas, no nays. The motion carries. Next item.
We will now begin with unfinished business for safety and permits decision appeals. Will the chair please read the hearing rules for decision appeals?
Rules and procedures for public hearings, appeals of decisions of the Director of the Department of Safety and Permits. The following procedures shall be observed during the appeal hearing. Each speaker shall give their name and address prior to speaking on the proposal. The representative of the Department of Safety and Permits shall present to the board the decision which is under appeal, the relevant code sections relating to the appeal, and any information explaining the department's decision. The applicant or representative will speak next. The presentation shall be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes for each applicant or representative speaker. But in no event shall the cumulative presentation total by applicants or their representatives exceed 15 minutes. Proponents or persons in favor of the proposal will speak next and be allowed 3 minutes per speaker. Opponents or persons in opposition of the proposal will speak next and be allowed 3 minutes per speaker. The applicant or representative will be allowed a rebuttal. The rebuttal shall be limited to a cumulative maximum of 5 minutes. For an exceptional case, the time limitations may be extended by the presiding officer with the approval of the board. As the board deems necessary, the case may be acted upon at this meeting or deferred for additional information or review. If the case is deferred, it will be acted on at a subsequent meeting as provided by law. All proper parliamentary procedures shall be followed, including recognition of speakers, relevance of argument, and absolute prohibition of applause or demonstration. Standard of review. The Board of Zoning Adjustments has the power to hear and decide appeals where it is alleged there is an error in any order, requirement, decision, or determination made by an administrative officer in the enforcement of the comprehensive zoning ordinance. The board also has the power to hear and determine appeals from applicants who have been refused a building permit because of a violation or conflict with the zoning ordinance or the official map of the city. The applicant's appeal to the Board of Zoning Adjustments is governed by Section 5-408 of the City of New Orleans Home Rule Charter.
Good afternoon, Dan McNamara, Chief Zoning Official for the City of New Orleans.
Before you start, staff, can you just read off what the next item is?
The next item is BZA docket 06225 for the property at 2501 through 2537 Tulane Avenue.
And good afternoon again, Dan McNamara, Chief Zoning Official for the City of New Orleans. It's my understanding at this time, at speaking to the council for the permittee, that this might be being withdrawn, so I don't know if I really need to go forward with the report and would refer to council for the permittee.
Yes, I wanted, we do plan, I'm sorry. This mic seems to be having problems. Can y'all hear me now?
No, it actually
We
just
can
tip it
hear
up.
you, but that's how the recording, so you have to speak directly into it for the
Okay,
video.
does that work?
Yes.
Okay, so is that all right? Okay, thanks. Good morning to you all. Yes, I've spoken with counsel for the landowner and also counsel for the city about our intentions to withdraw this appeal today on behalf of the two applicants. And I want to explain what is behind this withdrawal and just some comments that we've been asked to make on behalf of the applicants. Just to bring us up to where we are today, the location of this is at 2500 block of Tulane Avenue, and I'm sure y'all remember it well. It was an application for variances by the landowner, and then we also had the separate appeal for the permit for the construction that was made by the Director of Safety and Permits. And this appeal, which is what we're here about today, has been stayed throughout the litigation. And what's happened with the litigation is that y'all granted the variances, but what happened is that the trial court ruled in our favor, struck down all the variances. The appellate court in November ruled against us, reversed it, and the Supreme Court has decided not to hear the case. So we're back in front of you all now, and during this whole process, the construction has continued. The building is built for good or evil, whatever someone's perspective is on it. The building is there, it's operational, and has been some time. And I want to make a point about the neighborhood's position from the beginning of this. This was never about opposing a grocery store in this neighborhood. It was never about Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's is the tenant in this case. This was about the landowner and the fact that variances go with the land. They're permanent. They never change no matter who the tenant is. And this is a historic neighborhood. So the concerns and the dispute that came about was really with the landowner. And unfortunately, efforts to try to work out some of the objections that the neighbors had was to no avail. We were not able to get any agreement with them, and y'all actually granted the variances without any provisos, which kind of left the neighborhood with no choice but to try to proceed with the courts. And all they ever wanted was to make sure that this construction complied with the existing laws, and secondly, that's consistent with the master plan. And part of that with the master plan is that we want to have a vision. There is a vision by law about what our neighborhoods, our cities are going to look like. And that vision is not fully realized, but this was an effort to try to say, look, we've got to keep this in mind. It's important that we want to have walkable neighborhoods. It's important that we want to have access to public transit. It's important that we have urban designs that are consistent with existing historic neighborhoods. And unfortunately, every request that the neighbors made to honor that vision and that law was not accepted. And some of the grievances that the neighbors had, I'm just going to go through a couple of them just to get us in the background of where we are right now. But there was never any evidence presented about how many parking spaces were needed. This was a commercial development, and they had a traffic study. They also told you all they had a formula to figure out how many spaces were needed. To this day, that evidence was never presented here, and that was a big problem, the lack of evidence. And they just got up and said, we need spaces, you can have all the spaces you want, and it felt like there was a disregard of that. Also, unlike 42 of the 44 commercial buildings on Tulane Avenue that have a primary entrance on Tulane Avenue, this one doesn't have one. They weren't required to have a primary entrance. The reason that they gave was that there was theft in the city. That's not a sufficient reason to say that they don't have to have a primary entrance on a major street, and that's a problem. I want to point out another thing. We went back and forth in the questions about design. There are no shade trees now on that block. Drive down the 2500 block of Tulane Avenue. There's not a single shade tree. And this is a barren block, and this is not the vision of what any of us ever had in terms of what our neighborhood would look like or what for the pedestrians and the homeowners and residents who live across the street from where this place is. We also have a beige suburban-style building. It was allowed to be built. We were trying to urge that the urban design was an important part of this conversation. We have the Dixie Brewery, the Falstaff Brewery. This was historically a neighborhood that had these industrial breweries, and none of that was done. So that brings us to where we are today. Obviously, we disagree with the appellate court's ruling, but we're realists, and we know we have to abide by it, and it's the law, and so we have to acknowledge that. But as a result, we went to these, and we understand that these issues that we had in this appeal are essentially moot. And that's the reason for the withdrawal. It's not because we agree with what's happened, but that the issues are moot. But before we move to, no, it's not even a moved withdrawal, we are withdrawing and we'll do at the conclusion of these comments. This doesn't mean that there's not something to be learned here. For everybody, and something that we can all look at and say, is there a way to do this better and to resolve these disputes and these conflicts in a way that's better for the city and it's better for the people and better for our neighborhoods in reviewing specifically commercial developments in historic neighborhoods. That's a big deal. There's a need for growth, there's a need for development, but can we do it smart and can we do it in a reasonable way? And I don't know if y'all saw the article in yesterday's paper, Louisiana Landmarks, about all this, the property that's been restored and rehabilitated and preserved in the city. And there was a really interesting comment that was made there I thought that we wanted to talk with you all about just a little bit today. And that comment was that it really is possible to have thoughtful development and at the same time honor the soul of a historic neighborhood. Those two things do not necessarily have to be in conflict. Those two things can actually be realized together with just a couple of adjustments and some thoughtfulness applied to this. And that means we have to comply with existing law, and it also means this board exercising its authority and duty to look out for these historic neighborhoods and protect these residents and protect these neighborhoods from developments that are harmful and not beneficial. So there's two specific things I want to urge you all to give some additional thought to. And I was listening to you today and watching to you as you're going through your deliberations and making the decisions today. But these two things in particular, I think, for all of us would be helpful going forward. One of them is the issue of evidence. Actual evidence. You all are not a court of law. You don't have the same rules that a court of law has. But your rules require that in order to get a variance, there has to be actual evidence. One of the problems that we had throughout this process was, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence that there's theft in the city that means that you can't have a primary entrance? Where's the evidence?
That's the end of your time, Ms. Howell.
I think two people are here have seen.
But if we're with, I just want to just make it clear. Okay, can you just wrap it up quickly? If we're at a withdrawal, we typically aren't hearing any comments.
And I appreciate it. I appreciate your indulgence. And that's the one point I want to make about evidence. Don't take the developer's word for it. Hold them, make them be accountable. They've got money. They've got people representing them. Make them actually present evidence to you all that there is a hardship. The second thing is design. Several times, y'all, we would say, well, it's not design. We can't do anything about design. The CZO Article 4, Section 4.60 specifically states that when you all are granting a variance or considering a variance, one of the things that you do, that you may impose such conditions under location, construction, design, and use of the property. That's a power that you all have to interject into these conversations about the variances. You are not without that power. You have that authority, you have that power, and we really request that you use it, particularly when you're dealing with sensitive subjects like the impact of commercial developments in historic neighborhoods. Look at that rule. We believe you have the power, you have the authority to do this, the discretion to do it, and we would urge you to do that and to do it wisely and thoughtfully. Thank you for considering these comments, and if that not move to it, you don't have to have it as a motion. But we would withdraw the appeal that's currently pending.
Thank you. Next item.
The next item is BZA docket 110-25 for the property at 1037 through 39 Broadway Street.
I did want to quickly note that the property owner's agent submitted some materials after the deadline. So if the board would like to suspend the rules to accept those, we can do that.
Quick question, because we haven't necessarily voted to. Go ahead, legal. Sorry, legal.
Thank you. So during the April 20th meeting, we had a vote was taken on this matter that resulted in a tie vote of 3-3. This tie vote resulted in a de facto denial, causing the motion to fail. And as Emily noted, there has been new information that has come to light. So further action of the board is warranted and potentially necessary in this matter. So because Commissioner Richards is not here, we are going to need to, my suggestion would be that you would take up a motion to reconsider on the minutes, and it will just basically put on the record that a motion to reconsider, but it will pause it until all parties are available to properly hear the information, debate it, and vote on the matter.
Okay, I would entertain that motion to reconsider.
Reconsider on the minutes.
Excuse me, yes.
I second the motion to reconsider on the minutes.
It's been moved. Sorry, it's been moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Gonzalez to reconsider on the minutes. Roll call vote, Todd James.
Yes.
Tamara Eggins.
Yes.
Jose Alvarez.
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz.
Yes.
Alfonso Gonzalez.
Yay.
And Candace Forrest, yay. 6 yeas, no nays, the motion carries. Do we need to, I know that Emily brought up the additional items that were submitted by the property owner. I'm just trying to understand procedurally, because we haven't heard anything yet. Right. So I don't know if we need to go through all of that before we move to discuss whether or not to accept those additional items.
No, I think in light of the fact that it will be at the next meeting, that it can be properly then added to the record. Is that? It can be added. Yes, so I don't think we need to take up that motion at this moment. They don't need to do any further.
And just for procedure, when we're doing this motion to reconsider, it's essentially deferring the item until the next meeting?
Right, it's saying that the board would like to take up this matter, but because it's not being taken up at this moment, it will be taken up at the next meeting.
Got it. And I just wanted to make sure that that was, just clear for the record as well as for the audience. Do we need to take any? Forgive me for not having to do this very often. I'm just trying to understand procedurally what we have to do now at this point.
No, since the board voted on the motion, then we can go to the next agenda item.
Okay.
Well, I think that might be the end of the.
Yeah.
No public comments on this.
Okay. That's what I wanted to be clear, that there's no comments.
It's going, right.
Got it. So this item is, by way of our action, is deferred to the next meeting. Any other items?
Just a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Alvarez to adjourn the meeting. Roll call vote, Todd James.
Aye.
Tamara Eggins.
Yes.
Jose Alvarez. Ramiro Diaz. Alfonso Gonzalez.
Yay.
And Candace Forrest, yay. 6 yeas, no nays. The motion carries. And our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Closure.